federal government is governed by the Constitution.
So you would say that the Constitution is the root of our issues in this country?
I mean, it's one of them. You could also lead it back to capitalism.
Obviously, this woman has never read the Constitution, because the Constitution is not the cause of the problems in the United States. Unless you want to say that the cause of the problems in the United States are our freedoms, and the Constitution guarantees those freedoms, that I could see. Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Campus Reform interviewing students on the University of Florida campus about whether or not they should get rid of the Constitution, whether or not they think the Constitution should be reformed. Let's see what they have to say.
So we're talking to students at the University of Florida to get an idea of what their opinion is of the Constitution. Is it outdated? Do they think we need a brand new Constitution? Plus, will students go so far as to sign a petition to completely abolish the U.S. Constitution? Let's find out. So Constitution Day is on September 17th. What do you guys think of the Constitution?
Absolutely terrible.
Absolutely terrible. You obviously haven't read the Constitution. Do you know what the Constitution says? It says, hey, look, you're free. You have these rights. That's what it guarantees. They put them in writing. They are above human beings. They decided that these rights were inalienable. You cannot take these rights away. But they're being taken away left and right now. That's why there's all these problems, right?
To be redone immediately.
I think it needs a lot more reform for the changes that have happened since then. I think a lot of the things in there, they do need to be reevaluated, I guess. I think.
What things in the Constitution need to be reevaluated? Not allowing soldiers to be quartered in private residence during times of peace? Oh, I think that's a pretty good one. How about, I don't know, keeping you safe from illegal searches and seizures? The government can't even search your property. Did you know that? You have the right to privacy. How is that a bad thing? Are you worried that we're not searching the private property of criminals and therefore they're getting away with crimes? Well, that's the price you pay for living in a free society where you can't have your stuff searched when you're not a criminal. That's how it works.
I think we just need to update it on more equality, equity, stuff like that.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Everybody is the same in the Constitution. Yes, at the time, it was written only for white people. Everybody else was not considered fully human, but we don't feel that way anymore. And hey, we use the pronoun we. Very, very strange pronoun to use there. And we today think that when we use the word we, that means everybody in the group we're referring to, including ourselves, right?
So the Constitution, I feel like it's outdated, like some of the stuff on there.
I think that our Constitution that we have for America is to some degree outdated, but I also think it is very historical.
Well, these people are just, it's outdated, it's outdated, it's outdated. What are you, okay, so what are the freedoms that you would like to have today that you don't have, that the Constitution should guarantee you because times have changed? The right to free internet. Okay, we already have free internet. I mean, we have the ability to communicate. Obviously, we have freedom of speech, but the internet is trying to curtail that, is trying to reduce our freedom of speech. So maybe there needs to be put in a provision specifically for the internet, specifically referring to the internet, but that's not necessary. We already have freedom of speech covered in the Constitution. Now this guy here gets it. Check this out.
Can't put a price on how valuable the Constitution is. I think when you look at us versus other countries throughout time, no matter the crests and troughs that we face, the absolute security of our freedoms in the Constitution is what has kept this country together and kept us great through thick and thin.
Boom. Right there. Mic drop.
Do you think the Constitution is outdated?
I mean, I think it has to be. It was written in the late 1700s. It wasn't written for the 21st century.
Extremely. It's completely outdated. It was written by those that don't represent the both of us at the moment, and it didn't represent everybody at the time.
Yes.
Yes, a tad.
There are a lot of outdated things in there that nowadays aren't accepted.
What things? What things are in the Constitution that aren't accepted today? The freedom for all people of all races to vote? The freedom for all people of all genders to vote? That's in the Constitution? That's two different amendments, by the way. I don't know what these things are they're referring. Maybe they're referring to the Second Amendment. Ooh, that evil Second Amendment. What does that one say? Hey, we have the right to bear arms so that we have the freedom to speak our minds. Imagine that. And I would have maybe, agreed with people a little bit about, yeah, we maybe need to do something about guns. Maybe it's a lot of people being killed by them a few years ago, but today, no. We need to have the freedom to own those weapons so that we can defend ourselves against aggressors, no matter where they come from.
To an extent, like when people talk about the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms.
Not all of it's necessarily the easiest applied to now.
Do you think that the Constitution is a portrayal of the patriarchy since it was created by the founding fathers?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a portrayal of the patriarchy, that evil patriarchy, because it was written by men, those evil men, and all the bad things that they do. Yeah, and all they wanted to do was say, hey, look, you have these freedoms and these rights. That's what you have as a human being, period. They can't be taken away. Read through the Constitution. What are we going to say? Oh, you have the right not to incriminate yourself in a trial. You have the right to a trial by jury. Oh my gosh, these things are terrible. We must get rid of them.
I would definitely say so, especially since when you reflect back on those who were writing it at the time and you see it's all old white men.
I mean, I think it's impossible not to. I mean, they didn't have another perspective, nor were they seeking it.
Absolutely, yes, I think so.
They actually sought out perspectives from all throughout history to determine what would be the best system for people to live under.
It should have been made by like a group of diverse people, but back then, you know how it was back then.
Yeah, I do, and I agree with her.
Why do these ladies not speak English? I don't understand what they're like speaking some weird dialect.
Like, it should be revised by different people.
The time period, was rich old white men, and that's exactly what that document says and stands for and vouches for.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who would you rather have make up the laws then? Choose a group of people. How about the poor young white men? We should do that. How about that? What would they have decided that they wanted to see in their governance? The reason that it happened to be rich men is because they were also the most educated at the time, typically, because they could afford to get an education. Most people didn't have an understanding that there was, these other things that had happened before, these other types of governmental systems that had been in existence and didn't work.
I mean, just because words were written by men doesn't make it part of the patriarchy.
Again, mic drop. This guy, he knows what he's talking about.
I mean, if it were written by women, it wouldn't be the matriarchy.
I'm going around with this petition. As you can see, I've already gotten some of your fellow students to sign a petition to abolish the Constitution, create a whole new one, to be more inclusive, more politically aware of our surroundings in 2021. Would you guys be willing to sign this petition?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Yes, of course. Of course, they want to get rid of the Constitution. They want to abolish it, make it more inclusive. Okay, it says we. The Constitution says we. Don't know what to tell you about that.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And would you be willing to sign that?
Sure.
It should be abolished. Like, it's time for a new constitution. It wasn't like pronouns like they, them, stuff like that either.
So we should include the new pronouns in the Constitution?
Yeah.
So this appears to be an uneducated female, young female, and she's black. Very much the opposite. She's like exactly the opposite of these rich white men who wrote up the Constitution. Her big concern is we don't have enough pronouns, enough different kinds of pronouns in the Constitution. That's her big concern. Oh my gosh, we need to have they, them, Zer, whatever their 15 million pronouns are. The thing is with all these different pronouns is that it can be any pronoun. You can just decide this is my pronoun and you're going to use it, which we all know is crap, but people want to honor that. I don't understand it.
Like, to make everyone feel included.
The issues of social and cultural differences within our country have been such an issue, predicated by the control that the federal government has over everything. And the federal
government doesn't have control over anything. And that's why you're having these social issues happen. See, what happens when you have this level of freedom that we have here in the United States where everybody can express their own culture however they want to, as long as they're not breaking the law, well, then you're going to have these social clashes because you're going to have people who are like, hey, I believe this. Hey, I believe this. And then everybody's going to be believing something different, and they're going to get on each other's nerves. That's the price of freedom. It's really annoying, but that's the price of freedom.
Government is governed by the Constitution.
So you would say that the Constitution is the root of our issues in this country?
I mean, it's one of them. You could also lead it back to capitalism.
I would have to look into it.
Of course, freedom and free markets, those are the problems in our country. Those are really what are causing us to suffer and struggle. No, the problems are we have the corporatocracy in this country. That's really what's causing a lot of these issues.
So I'm not going to make a decision on something I don't really know that much about. In the future, if it comes a time that we need to, then I think we should.
Like, someone could come up with one that's better, then sure, why not? Why not give it a try?
Yeah, I agree. If somebody could come up with a better document than the Constitution, one that ensures greater amounts of freedom, then we should definitely do that. But Constitution is pretty good at guaranteeing freedom. I don't know.
I'd like to see a document, in the future to be put together by a more diverse group of people.
I think that is a very naive idea. I think a lot of people who, see, surface level problems tend to think, oh, maybe just tear everything down. They don't realize that the Constitution and its guarantees have actually kept a lot of problems from happening.
So yeah, when I was in college, I was on the bandwagon of, we need to get rid of the Constitution or reform the Constitution for about a second, because a lot of people around me were talking about it. But then I started asking. It wasn't very long into them persistently bringing this up that I asked them, like, okay, so what's the problem with the Constitution? I don't understand. What's the big deal? And a lot of them didn't really have anything to say. Like, they're just like, oh, look around, look how bad the country has gotten. We need to fix the Constitution. It's because the Constitution is like this. And then finally I got an answer. Well, we need to get rid of lobbying. Like, okay, well, what does that have to do with the Constitution? You could put an amendment into the Constitution making lobbying illegal, taking money out of politics. That's a good idea, actually, getting rid of money in politics. I agree. That doesn't need a constitutional amendment to do that, but I wish that the founding fathers had the foresight to see the potential of corporatocracy in the capitalist system. And if people are complaining about that, then yeah, I'm on board. It's like, we have these corporations actually running the government now. That's ridiculous. Let me see, what were some of the other things that they brought up? I think somebody pointed out to me, it was like, well, slavery is illegal in the Constitution. I'm like, what are you talking about? Slavery's been abolished. And they're like, well, not for criminals. I'm like, so what? If you break the law, that's part of your punishment. I'm glad to see that if you are put into manual labor when you break the law, that your energy and ability is not being wasted. You're actually being used for something valuable. I don't know if there was anything else specific that anybody brought up, which, it was like obvious to me that they didn't know what they were talking about, that I had just been duped into like this bandwagon thinking for a short period of time, which is not like me, which is why it only lasted for a short period of time. I was young, of course, opening my mind to new ideas and everything. But in more recent years, somebody on Facebook, one of these guys I used to work with, he was like, I can't believe that the Third Amendment is the amendment about keeping soldiers out of your house. What, this is the third one? Nothing about equal rights, nothing about, well, it's like they didn't believe in equal rights back then. If that's what your big complaint is about, equal rights, we already have equal rights. Whether or not they're in the Constitution, we already have that now. We've had it since the 60s, and it's just gotten better over time. But his big deal was like, I can just see these rich landowners going, yeah, I don't want those soldiers coming in here mucking up my floors. And that was the big turning point for putting that amendment in the Constitution. And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, because history shows us that the soldiers would be quartered into people's homes and the people would end up living in their barns. It was that bad. You had to give up your best bedroom first and then on down the line until eventually you were sleeping in the barn. So people were complaining about that. And hey, think about that for a second. If we did not have that amendment, the Third Amendment in the Constitution, think about what that could mean for you. You could be right now in your home in the United States having a soldier, a trained professional killer, that's what their job is, living with you, which, I mean, nothing against trained professional killers, but maybe you don't want that living in your house around your children. I'm just, it's a stranger who does that for a living, especially in a time when it was easier to get away with crimes because there weren't cameras. There wasn't the information to go, hey, when people do you wrong, you got to speak out. You got to press charges, go to the police. When we didn't have a police force, the Constitution, when were the police? I think there were police by the time of the Constitution, but they weren't widespread like they are now. So it's like, wow, these kids, it's all about equal rights now. Oh, we don't have equal rights in the Constitution. No, because it's all about for us. It's for everybody. You have the right to discriminate against people according to the Constitution. No, not really. And even if I do, guess what? There's other laws in place that keep me from discriminating against other people. But they all believe that black people are basically they're one step above slaves right now. That's what they think. These kids these days. Wow. So anyway, that's all that I got for this time. Thank you so much for stopping by. I do appreciate everybody supporting my work. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Make sure that you're still subscribed. Click that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.